Our guide through this scary world is R. Barri Flowers' book, Chilling Tales: Serial Killer Couples. This book is a treasure trove of information and provides a deep dive into the psychology and motivations behind these deadly duos. Flowers has done extensive research and presents the cases in a way that's both informative and chilling. If you're a true crime enthusiast, this book is a must-read. This book is serious stuff. It's not for the faint of heart. Flowers doesn't shy away from the gruesome details, and he provides a comprehensive look at each case. From the initial meeting of the couples to their eventual capture, every aspect is covered. It's a deep dive into the minds of some of the most notorious serial killer couples in history. Flowers really looks into what makes these couples do such awful things. Is it love? Is it a twisted form of loyalty? Or is it something else entirely? The psychology behind these relationships is complex and often disturbing. We'll explore the various theories and try to understand what drives these couples to commit such horrific acts. Is it a shared pathology, or is one partner the dominant force, leading the other down a dark path? Is one person controlling the other? In many cases, there seems to be a dominant partner who exerts control over the other. This dynamic can be seen in the way they plan and execute their crimes. The dominant partner often manipulates the other, using psychological tactics to maintain control. We'll look at some examples of this and try to understand how these dynamics play out in real life. Or are they just plain evil? Sometimes it seems like both partners are equally culpable, sharing a mutual desire for violence and chaos. In these cases, it's hard to pinpoint a single driving force. Instead, it appears that both individuals feed off each other's dark impulses, creating a deadly synergy. We'll delve into some of these cases and try to understand the nature of their evil. We're going to try to figure all that out. It's a complex and often disturbing topic, but it's one that sheds light on the darker aspects of human nature. By understanding these dynamics, we can gain insights into the minds of these killers and perhaps even prevent future tragedies. So join me as we embark on this dark journey together. So, grab your detective hats, your questioning minds, and maybe a nice drink, because things are about to get dark. We're going to need all our wits about us as we navigate through these chilling tales. Whether you're a seasoned true crime fan or new to the genre, I promise you, this journey will be both enlightening and spine-tingling. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me continue to bring you these deep dives into the darkest corners of human behavior. So, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's dive into the chilling world of serial killer couples. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. First up, we're talking about the original crime couple, the ones who practically invented robbing and running, Bonnie and Clyde. Their story is one of the most infamous in American history, a tale of love, crime, and tragedy that has fascinated people for decades. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were not just criminals, they were symbols of rebellion during one of the toughest times in American history, the Great Depression. Their exploits have been romanticized in movies, books, and songs, but the reality of their lives was far more complex and darker than any Hollywood script could capture. You've probably heard of them, maybe even seen the movie, but how much do you really know about the real Bonnie and Clyde? The 1967 film starring Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty brought their story to a new generation, painting them as tragic anti-heroes. However, the real Bonnie and Clyde were far from the glamorous outlaws depicted on the silver screen. They were young, desperate, and ruthless, willing to do whatever it took to stay one step ahead of the law. But the real story is even crazier than Hollywood could make it. Imagine being on the run, constantly looking over your shoulder, never knowing who you can trust. That was the reality for Bonnie and Clyde. They lived a life of constant danger and uncertainty, always on the move, always planning their next heist. Their crime spree lasted for 2 years, from 1932 to 1934, and during that time, they became the most wanted criminals in America. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were two young people from Texas who, during the Great Depression, decided to fight back by robbing banks and, well, hurting anyone who got in their way. They met in 1930 and quickly fell in love, but their relationship was anything but ordinary. Clyde had already been involved in criminal activities, and Bonnie soon joined him. Together, they formed a gang and embarked on a crime spree that included bank robberies, car thefts, and even prison breaks. They were like symbols of rebellion, even though they were criminals. In a time when many people were struggling to survive, Bonnie and Clyde's defiance of authority and their daring escapades captured the public's imagination. They became folk heroes to some, seen as modern-day Robin Hoods who were striking back against a system that had failed them. But this romanticized view overlooks the harsh realities of their actions and the suffering they caused. But behind the romantic idea of two lovers on the run was a lot of violence. Their crimes were not victimless. They left a trail of blood and pain in their wake. They were involved in numerous shootouts with law enforcement, and their willingness to use violence made them extremely dangerous. The authorities were determined to bring them to justice, and the manhunt for Bonnie and Clyde became one of the largest in American history. They were killers, responsible for the deaths of at least 13 people, including police officers. Their notoriety grew with each crime, and their faces were plastered on wanted posters across the country. Despite their efforts to evade capture, the law eventually caught up with them. On May 23, 1934, Bonnie and Clyde were ambushed by law enforcement officers in Louisiana and killed in a hail of bullets. Their deaths marked the end of their violent journey but cemented their place in American folklore. Our Barri Flowers doesn't hide how bad their crimes were, reminding us that there were real victims. The families of those they killed were left to mourn their loved ones, and the communities they terrorized were left to pick up the pieces. The romanticized image of Bonnie and Clyde often overshadows the real human cost of their actions. It's important to remember that behind the legend were real people who suffered because of their crimes. But he also looks into why they did such terrible things. What drove Bonnie and Clyde to a life of crime? Was it desperation, a desire for excitement, or something deeper? Some experts believe that their actions were a response to the harsh economic conditions of the time, while others think that their personalities and relationship dynamics played a significant role. Understanding their motivations doesn't excuse their actions, but it does provide a more nuanced view of who they were and why they did what they did. Okay, friends, get ready because our next case takes us to the UK, where we meet Fred and Rosemary West, a couple whose crimes shocked everyone. Their story is one of the most chilling and disturbing in the annals of true crime. Fred and Rosemary West were not just any ordinary couple. They were partners in a series of heinous acts that left a permanent scar on the community and the nation. Their crimes were so horrific that they have been etched into the collective memory of the UK, serving as a grim reminder of the evil that can lurk behind closed doors. This story is not for the easily scared, so if you're squeamish, skip ahead. The details of their actions are so gruesome that they can haunt your thoughts long after you hear them. The West's house, which seemed so ordinary from the outside, was a place of unimaginable horror. It was a house where the line between normalcy and terror was blurred, a place where the most unspeakable acts were committed in the shadows. For those who dare to listen, we're going to 25 Cromwell Street, a normal-looking house in England. This house, with its unassuming facade, hid the darkest of secrets. It was here that Fred and Rosemary West carried out their reign of terror, turning their home into a house of horrors. The address itself has become synonymous with evil, a place where innocence was shattered and lives were destroyed. But inside was a horrible secret, a secret that made this address famous for terrible things. The West's home was a labyrinth of hidden rooms and concealed spaces, each one a silent witness to the atrocities committed within its walls. The house was a prison for their victims, a place where hope was extinguished and despair reigned supreme. The very walls seemed to absorb the suffering and pain inflicted by Fred and Rosemary. For over 20 years, Fred and Rosemary West hurt, assaulted, and murdered young women and girls, luring them into their home with promises of work or shelter. Once inside, these innocent victims were subjected to unimaginable cruelty. The West's methods were as varied as they were brutal, and their depravity knew no bounds. They took pleasure in the suffering of others, and their home became a macabre playground where they indulged their darkest fantasies, burying many of them in their own home. The bodies of their victims were hidden in the cellar, under the floorboards, and in the garden. Each burial site was a grim testament to the West's cruelty and their complete disregard for human life. The discovery of these remains sent shockwaves through the community, revealing the true extent of the horrors that had taken place at 25 Cromwell Street. The house became their playground of evil. It was a place where they could act out their most depraved desires without fear of being caught. The Wests created an environment of fear and control, manipulating their victims and each other to maintain their reign of terror. The house itself seemed to take on a life of its own, becoming a character in the story of their crimes, a silent accomplice to their evil deeds. R. Barri Flowers carefully explains the details of their crimes, showing how truly awful they were. His meticulous research and detailed accounts provide a chilling insight into the minds of Fred and Rosemary West. Flowers' work helps us understand the psychology behind their actions, shedding light on the factors that drove them to commit such heinous acts. His book is a comprehensive examination of their crimes, offering a sobering reminder of the depths of human depravity. It's a hard story to hear, but it's important to understand how cruel they were. By studying their crimes, we can learn to recognize the signs of such behavior and hopefully prevent similar atrocities in the future. The story of Fred and Rosemary West is a stark reminder of the evil that can exist in the world, and the importance of vigilance and awareness in protecting the innocent. Their legacy is one of pain and suffering, but it also serves as a powerful warning of the dangers that can lurk behind a seemingly normal facade. Welcome back, true crime fans, for another scary story that shows real life can be scarier than fiction. Grab your coffee, tea, or something stronger, and let's dive into the disturbing case of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, also known as the Ken and Barbie killers. I know what you're thinking, Ken and Barbie? Really? But the difference between how they looked and what they did is truly chilling. These two, with their good looks and charm, fooled everyone. This case is full of twists and turns. We're talking serious manipulation, lies, and pure evil. It's the kind of story that makes you want to lock your doors and hug your loved ones. So hold on tight, because this is going to be a wild ride. Hey crime solvers, welcome back. Today we're looking at the chilling case of Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, the Moors murderers. This British couple committed terrible crimes in the 1960s, and you'll want to hear the details. So grab your coffee, tea, or something stronger, because we're about to unravel a tale of pure evil. Get ready, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Ian Brady and Myra Hindley were like something out of a horror movie. They met in Manchester, England in 1961, and their relationship quickly turned dark. They brutally murdered 5 innocent children. It's hard to believe. For 2 years, these monsters targeted kids, tricking them with promises of fun trips. It's terrifying. Welcome back, crime fans. Now that we've talked about the Moors murders, let's talk about another killer couple who targeted vulnerable people. Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck, the Lonely Hearts Killers. Their story is full of lies, manipulation, and murder. This story takes us back to the 1940s, when Lonely Hearts ads in newspapers were popular. Before dating apps, people used these ads to find love. Sadly, for some, it led them to danger. Raymond Fernandez, a con man, used these ads to trick women, often widows or single mothers, with promises of marriage. But he only wanted their money. That's where Martha Beck comes in. She was a lonely nurse who fell in love with Raymond after answering one of his ads. Talk about a bad match. Well, my friends, we've reached the end of our journey into the world of serial killer couples. From Bonnie and Clyde to Fred and Rosemary West, Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, and Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck, we've explored some dark stories. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more true crime stories. Stay safe, and remember, things aren't always what they seem.